Hi and welcome to the award-winning Gutter Show, coming to you via it's the free show actually. It's the midweek, not the subscription one. I've got to remember that, which means we've got a sponsor today. And joining me to enjoy talking about the sponsor before we drill down into the minor news that's just breaking, that Florian Wirtz is going to be a Liverpool player, and we are going to speak endlessly about that until the end of time now, because it's the best thing that's ever happened ever. We're first going to talk about our sponsor, Salah. Salah is a new eSIM service app from our friends at NordVPN. Abigail, did you cough? You threw me off my stride there.
Sorry.
For God's sake. Salah paid good money for this. Where you can choose from several affordable eSIM plans in over 200 countries and 8 regions. And I'm going to test you on those 200 countries in a minute. And you can guess the regions, Mike. Let's be serious, Phil. If you've ever struggled to find Wi-Fi abroad or return from holiday to a nasty mobile phone bill, you'll understand what a difference a local SIM card can make. An eSIM provides an internet connection wherever you travel and also saves you money on roaming fees. Phil, there is also 24-hour chat support available for you should you have any issues, and you will get a full refund if your eSIM isn't fully compatible. All you'll need to do to get started is download the Salah app on your phone, scroll through the plans, choose the best one for you, Mike, and then follow the instructions on the app to install the eSIM. The Salah eSIM will then be activated instantly when landing in your destination. So, Abigail, download Salah in the App Store or by scanning the QR code on the screen and use the code TAW at checkout to get a 15% off your first purchase. I know, right? All the details are also in the episode description box. And Mike, beforehand we were just workshopping some jingles for Salah, which we may or may not do later in the show. Andy's suggesting they probably don't want us to do that, so we.
I don't think anyone wants to hear you sing, though.
Hey! You want to hear me on karaoke? I'm amazing.
I'm not having it.
I fucking am. But anyway, tell you who is definitely amazing: Florian Wirtz. Florian. What's his first name?
Florian.
No, sorry, sir. That's what I meant. All right, it's early. What's his middle name?
I don't know his middle name. Why would you know his middle name?
Florian
Let's see
Dave.
if he's got one. He might not have one.
Dave, like Gomez. Florian Dave Wirtz.
Yeah.
FEW, that'd be weird.
Richard.
No, D. Richard.
Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Florian Richard Wirtz.
It's not very German, that, is it?
It's
It's like
very
Florian
Richard.
Wirtz, German. Richard, not so much.
Dicky.
Yeah. I don't think they have that same abbreviation.
Okay, come on. Well, the breaking news, Phil, you know that as well. You know as well as I do, is that Florian is going to be a Liverpool player. I think everyone's broken it, every mofo, including Joycey, Ornsteiny. Let's start with you and talk about, well, the first information, right, before I even process how fantastic this is that the fee is going to be 100 million guaranteed up front for Bayer Leverkusen, plus 16 million in add-ons. We don't know how easily achievable or not those are at the moment. What does that make it gross in euros? About 136?
Yeah, it's about 136, I believe.
Which is less than the touted that they won't accept a penny less than 150 million euro package. Feels like we've got a snip there.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think a lot of this is related to the add-ons, and these things are always related to the add-ons because there's a world where Bayer Leverkusen are better off with this offer than one which is actually 150 million because the add-ons are much more achievable. Like you can look at a number and go, well, that number's better than that one. But if, for example, he needs to win 5 Ballon d'Ors in the next 5 years to get 150 million,
which he so will,
obviously he's going to do that. But it sort of makes it so that if the £116 million one involves a league title, a European Cup, and 50 goals in the next 5 years, that feels quite achievable. And I'm not saying that it will definitely happen, but that is something that you can look at from Leverkusen's point of view and go, well, okay, we can see how this happens. So it was always going to take a while, this negotiation. I've been a bit bemused that the amount of, well, why is this not done? Why is this dragging on? Why is it a saga? And it's, what is it? It's the 13th of June. It's not a saga. It's been quite straightforward. It's just that the modern world means that you know every single bit of information pretty much as and when it happens, because that's the way a lot of people make their
Well, we've seen the interesting thing, really, though, on that stay with you is that the way Liverpool have done deals is they're very good at keeping them relatively quiet. So when you know, it's because it's about to happen, and the story tends to catch light very quickly. In a way, Liverpool have spoiled us, I'd say, in recent times a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to the Fabinho one, for example, where Fabinho went from Liverpool might sign him to him having signed within about 2 hours, to the point where he probably already actually signed before anybody even knew about his existence in in Liverpool's interest, because he wasn't even linked with Liverpool at the time, if you remember. It just suddenly turned up, and it's like, oh, hang on, this is happening. Whereas this one, it's you find out about everything, you know everything, you see everything, and it's a bit of it's just the way of the world now, I suppose, and it's just a bit, it's ultimately quite exciting that you get to know all of the stuff, I think, because you get an insight, you get excited about it, and whilst there is an element of fun when it happens out the blue, there is also an element of fun about sort of building up to it and getting a sort of insight into the football and watching videos and listening to people speak. Like, if it had happened, some of the stuff that Wrap's put out in the last couple of weeks, like the Kevin Hatchard thing, for example, I really enjoyed listening to him talk about it. If that suddenly happens, you don't get that, and that's it's almost part of the journey. And
on our tour subscriptions, you have a store player, which you can get.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a number of them as well. There's a number of shows that are all worth listening to. A lot
of fellas talking for about 19 minutes each about how brilliant Florian Wirtz is. I'm going to listen to them all again on my way home after this. Cannot wait. And a special shout out to our friend and guest on the show often is Adam Melia, who has a religious thing where he will not watch any YouTube clips of a player we're strongly linked to or about to sign until the deal is announced. He's absolutely adamant he'll jinx it if he does that. But he can't jinx it now. He cannot jinx it now, Abigail. He cannot jinx it. No one can take this away from us. Now, in all seriousness, people say, glibly goes, reports of Florian Wirtz signing for Liverpool, it would be a statement of intent by the Reds. But it is a statement of intent. It's a... we've sort of allowed it to seep in and process it and become excited by it and want it to happen. But if you rewind 2 or 3 months, you just couldn't see Liverpool entering the race for a deal of this scale. Not really.
This isn't really how we've done things over the years. Anytime we've been successful, it's sort of felt as though the transfer window after we've won something. I mean, obviously, you've just said the Fabinho thing after losing the Champions League final and all that, but it tends to be after we've been successful and we've won something. It's always felt with Liverpool that we've let things stagnate a little bit. We kept that midfield with like Milner and Henderson and all that just that little bit too long. It felt at times when after we won the European Cup or after we won the league last time, when there was points where we could progress and we could see where we needed to improve. We were crying out for a DM for how long, and it just felt as though we were never going to do it. And actually now, it just seems to have been a shift in the way the owners want to work things, maybe the way Slot wants to do things. We want to grow from a position of strength, basically, and I think that's very telling as to how we're going to do things. But I also think that you can sort of take your hat off to the owners over the last couple of years to be like, we haven't just spent money at times when, we probably didn't need specific players. We were crying out for, the Caicedo and all that, and we were offering money for it, but I don't think we were ever actually that serious with going for it. But it's felt as though we've saved our money, we've worked the whole PSR thing really cleverly, and the moment a top 20, top 10 world-class player like Wirtz has come along, we've gone, we've saved all that money now. From a position after winning the league, this is how we can go on to maybe do better in the Champions League, keep the league title, go again. Do you know what I mean? It feels as though we've decided, right, we're not going to just let things stagnate again. We are going to go again and we're going to rebuild. I mean, there's that whole thing of being like, oh, maybe it's too much change, Frimpong gonna probably have Kirkers and then Wirtz, but I don't believe in that. I think the dressing room right now are going to be really excited at the fact that these players, especially a world-class player like Wirtz, is going to be playing for Liverpool and walking into that dressing room. I think it's just completely positive all round, and it makes me, I want the season to start now. After the league,
bring on Preston.
Yeah. After the league ended, I felt a little bit drained from all those big celebrations, and I thought, right, need a little bit of a rest now, just look into transfers and stuff. Now we've signed Wirtz, I'm like, right, get that pre-season started. I want to see how we're going to use him, and I just feel dead excited for the whole thing now, and I want the season to go again. It's
a salutary reminder how brilliant transfers are, and how stupid people who think are above transfers are. Stupid people. Serious question incoming, Mike. It's sort of the same question I put to Abby in a way, but is this Liverpool putting their foot down as an organisation? Is this Liverpool reading the room in a broader sense, looking at the cycle of some of the traditionally competitive clubs and saying some of these clubs are not at their peak at the moment? The Man Cities of this world, the Bayern Munichs, even Real Madrid, although they've kind of bought Trent. They weren't peak Madrid last season by any stretch. Barcelona are good, young, upcoming, but still vulnerable. Is this the ownership, management, directorship of football looking at it and goes, this is sort of a sweet spot moment in history, in our history. We've won the league, we're from a position of strength, we could double down, strengthen, and really build something quite substantial here.
Yeah, look, it's when he first came in, Richard Hughes, he literally said in the press conference that he was put up in, which was probably a strange move that some thought at the time, but he said about being opportunistic. And this is that in capital letters, I'd say. Like we have just won the league, and yes, there is a bit of change around, but Man City are, in the middle of revamping their squad. They also did loads of business in January that a lot of people seem to be forgetting on football internet.
Yes,
all that shit about like, oh, they've spent this much, blah blah blah. I don't care. Where it's going to cost another 50 million quid, I don't care. He is, as Abby's just said, one of the top 10 most exciting talents in the world at the minute. He's 22. I think he's 21 or 22. He's
22. Quite recently,
yeah.
22.
So if he signs a 5-6 year deal,
5,
but he's going to be 27 at the end of that, and we're going to have a lot of fantastic football between now and then. We've done it. I think when we signed Salah and Mane and stuff like that, I think they were all younger than 24.
I think they were about 24. Both. I think Salah and Mane were both 24.
Salah
Yeah,
around
I think
32.
Yeah.
Salah's 32 now, isn't he? And he signed
in 2017.
in 2017. I think he was 24.
24, definitely not older than 24.
Yeah,
but we're definitely getting Wirtz. Let's put it this way: we know Liverpool's sweet spot is 21 to 24.
But we're
21
there
to
again, aren't we?
25. This is the younger end of that.
Frimpong's about the 24, I think.
Yes,
24.
yeah, that's
Wirtz
right.
is 22. Kirker's heavily rumoured
To be 21.
21. We're sort
I
of
hope
in that
that's not a
ballpark.
rumour, and I hope he is actually 21.
I think it's true. I think it might be true.
But it seems to be all in that sort of ballpark again, where we are sort of revamping where we need to revamp. Like at the beginning of this summer, I don't think I'd have been down for a sort of attacking midfield signing that we've gone for, and now we've gone for it. It's actually yeah, of course we're always going to be in the conversations for them sort of players, I think, and the fact that we've then been able to win the league and bring a project to this player where he's excited by it and wants to come and be a part of it speaks volumes. And yeah, look, we've been sensible in the past, of course we have, but it being sensible gets us to where we are now. Why not be sensible as much as we can? And yes, we've just spent £100 million on a player, and who knows what the add-ons are. I don't care if there's a whole thing buzzing up about Nunes, and if he starts again, we owe X,
5 million quid more to it.
But imagine if that next start was a Champions League final. None of us would care.
No.
Because we'd be watching Liverpool Football Club playing a Champions League final.
And he's not getting picked anyway.
And exactly. So, like, I don't care what the add-ons are. Like, I'm going to see a Bosch footballer play for Liverpool through basically the peak of his career, getting into the peak of his career. And if he loves it that much as I think all these players around him, Mo Salah's done 9 years now.
Yeah.
Van Dijk's come in and he's captain the club now and loves. Have you ever seen a man love being himself and being his role more than that? Alisson's loved his time. They all love the time here.
Yes, and I hope Florian Wirtz is going to be the next time-loving guy.
He is the next one, and Frimpong and Kirkers and maybe others involved after the rest of the summer. Who knows? It's just a massively exciting time to be a part of this. McAllister a couple of years ago, great value, great player. Red Gravenberch absolutely blossomed into a phenomenal footballer. Recognised by his peers this season, voted Young Player of the Season, superb, young, great age. Szoboszlai's 25, 26, young-ish. It is just all coming together. It's all boiling really well up for. Well, we're champions as well, by the way, and yes, we're going to have targets on our backs next year. But can you imagine being part of this? Like, it must be so exciting, and I can't wait to watch it.
Yes, I can't wait either, Phil. I mean, what I think blindsided us as much as the idea that Liverpool were prepared to pay such a fee. I mean, it's interesting that the Bayern director of football, is it Max Eberl, was saying that they were shocked, but that Liverpool were prepared to pay that fee. They couldn't really. It's not just that we paid to pay that fee, but also that we were paying the fee in a non-priority, and what was certainly as fans and not inexpert fans, we perceived a non-priority position. No one saw the Dom Szoboszlai role, quite frankly, as the one that needed £120 million dropping on it. We all saw if Liverpool were going to go crazy in the market in relative terms, an Isak at 130 maybe, that they'd go, we have to put our chips somewhere like, he's the new Van Dijk equivalent, you know, the transformative signing, or the equivalent of Alisson. No one's what happening in this position, which sort of leads us to the tantalising proposition that this is only the beginning, in the sense that Liverpool might still drop a significant amount of money on a centre forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I've said this a few times now, but I think the biggest thing or unknown about this summer is we don't really know still exactly what the manager wants the team to look like. I think last year was him sort of making a functional team out of the tools he'd been given, as opposed to going out and buying his own tools and whatever to make what he wanted. So the idea that we could say this won't happen or that won't happen, I think is not quite right. It didn't come as quite a surprise to me in terms of the player, maybe because I think, you know, it was very heavily Bayern Munich, he's going to Bayern Munich, and then it was like, oh, Manchester City are interested, and then there was that mad thing where it turned out that he'd come to England and it wasn't actually Manchester City he was meeting with, it was Liverpool, and then from there it sort of rolled to where we are now. But the lack of surprise thing for me is that I've always thought that if we've thought a player is worth it, we will go after it and make it happen and do it. If you look through the sort of top 20 transfers ever, the success rate when people are spending that level of money should be nearly 100%, because these players should all be guarantees and so on and so forth, and they aren't. Like, it's not even close. It's really, some of them are mad. When you actually go back and look at them, if you go through and look at them, it is insane how many.
Okay, let's say in British football, let's pick the last 10 off the top of our heads. How have they gone? I mean, I'm thinking Declan Rice was a big success, but then who else has come? Pogba was a big failure.
Exactly, Pogba. There's
Caicedo's
done okay, but at the same
not
time,
justified the
Chelsea,
fee, no.
You know, Chelsea's level of success.
Lukaku's up there as well, isn't he?
Lukaku's
wasn't
there.
really a massive success, but
Yeah, that's a fair shout. I think, but you're right.
Sorry,
this is reason to be pessimistic.
No, the complete opposite. Like the complete opposite in terms of from our point of view, because we will not just go, well, he's a good player, let's spend lots of money on him. We will be more thorough, more sort of. We will take more care into this, and when we spend money, and know that. Like I sort of feel the more money Liverpool spend, the more likely it is to be successful.
I think Darwin Núñez bucked that trend for us for the first time.
I think there was a weird. I do think there was a weird situation where the way the club operated around that period had probably changed, and there was sort of, you know, I read Ian Graham's book last week basically, and it was talking about.
It's great, isn't it?
It's really good, but it was the line about if the sporting director, the manager, and the scouts all agree on a player, it rarely fails. I think it was probably just the manager who was into that one. Not that the others exactly. Not that the others didn't approve. That it was like he's like, I really like this player, I'm going to buy him. So obviously, when you take out two layers of this process, it's less likely to succeed. Whereas this feels like we've gone back to that rounded process and gone, right, okay, this is what we want. He's a huge difference maker. And also when one of the reasons we were able to spend this money is because we've been very clever with our spending in recent times. Like, we've got McAllister and Gravenberch for 70 million quid, like 75, something like that.
Basically did the whole of the midfield for 100 million. Where
do that relative to what Paul Pogba, who we just talked about, cost Manchester United. Would Manchester United be in a better position now if they'd have spent 90 million on three very good midfielders as opposed to Paul Pogba? I think they probably would be, because I think that transfer and a number of these transfers has held them back, whereas you can't say that's happened with us really, because we've only really spent big when we've looked at it and gone, this person is absolutely guaranteed to make a difference. And I think that is it's just you said before about you know, I sort of made it sound like pessimistic about, you know, it might fail because we spend a lot of money. It's the complete opposite of that, because I look at it and with how thorough we are, it really does feel like that. You look at this and it's a lot of people doing their job to the very highest level, knowing exactly what they're doing, and it feels incredibly positive for me. And it takes a lot of pressure off when you get this one good player, because the next one down probably doesn't have to be quite as good. It'd be great if they were, but if a creative fella, if someone can come in and create as much as he does, how good does the centre forward need to be?
He made Schick look good, didn't he?
Exactly. And Boniface as well. I don't think that Boniface is a particularly brilliant centre forward, but he scored buckets of goals for them. So, you know.
I think it is interesting, Abby, the degree to which the entire renovation of Liverpool's attack looks to be the project of the summer in a way I don't think was anticipatable, really. Because, well, firstly, Wirtz coming in changes the way we think about the number 10 role. Dominic Szoboszlai had interpreted it more as a traditional midfielder, a running box-to-box midfielder, I'd say. Wirtz is going to be a number 10 who, although he may play nominally in the midfield three, will feel very much as though he's the best Bezzy mates of the front three. He'll play much closer to them. Will assist them, I think, much more directly. So he feels like he's a new attacker we'll see lining up for Liverpool next season. We strongly sense, as Phil and I have been saying, that there's a centre forward in the post here somewhere. But on top of all that, you've got the other situation on the left wing, which fascinates and disturbs me in equal measure, which is that around Luis Diaz. And although the club aren't literally pushing him out the door, they're not renewing his contract. You wonder if there's a plan for the left side as well, is what I mean. Because the club are showing they're thinking everything through, and rightly so. They've planned ahead. If they're playing with the idea that Diaz might go, I'm wondering what's in the post there as well.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a for sale sign on Diaz, in my opinion. It just feels as though you don't really come out and say, oh, he's not for sale. But, you know, we're not renewing his contract. We don't think we're going to keep him on, that sort of thing, and start mentioning his age and stuff, you know, the things that the club have come out with. It just feels as though, to me, as if the club have gone, we're not selling you him for cheap, but you can have him if you give him a few quid, if you give us a few quid, you know, sort of hinting towards Saudi. And I do think with Diaz, if he does go to Saudi, it's sort of a nail in the coffin of your career, and I just feel like he's too talented to go there. But yeah, I think you're right. I do think we've signed Wirtz in a way of thinking, like, how can we improve the assists and the service to that attack 100%. I feel like when you lose a player like Trent Alexander-Arnold, with, you know, his passing ability is absolutely unbelievable and his assists over the years have been absolutely great. Not that the last season was absolutely amazing in those figures at all, but it does feel as though the club have been looking and gone, how can we replace this sort of, that service, and what sort of would benefit Salah in lots of ways? Because now, can you imagine a world where we've got Frimpong, basically a wing back, you know, with Mo, and then we've got the likes of Wirtz on the pitch. It just feels as though that the club are building something that's different to what I was anticipating. Fully, when it comes down to this summer, I was thinking, right, we'll probably get Frimpong, we'll probably get Kerkez, and then we'll get a number 9. Like you've just said, Isak's probably the one that we go for. And I was thinking the likes of Isak with Salah, that would just be great, because Salah would be threading into Isak, and I just thought that would be unbelievable to watch. But it just feels as though now the club might be taking a different approach to what we were thinking, and I don't know what that means for Szoboszlai, whether that means Szoboszlai is going to have to drop deeper, whether that means the club have seen Szoboszlai's comments on every single Real Madrid post. Have you seen that? Where he's been,
no, she said
Szoboszlai's been commenting red hearts under every single Instagram post Real Madrid have been putting on of Trent, which a lot of people have gone sell him now. So,
just his mate.
but you know, he's his mate. But now we've signed Wirtz for 116 million, and I think, you know,
got to get your act together, Dom.
Yeah, get your act together. Don't start making me mad, sort of thing. So, you know, I think we're going in a different direction to what I was anticipating this summer, but it looks like we're going to be more strong than ever. I don't know whether we do end up having to replace Diaz, and whether we do still get a number 9, whether they use Wirtz as a false 9. I don't know how it's going to work, but no matter what, I'm excited.
Phil,
did you see the Christian Falk wrote a piece yesterday mentioning Rafa Leao, Liverpool? It was a really interesting piece, actually, because it had clearly been told to him by Bayern Munich, because the thrust of the piece was about Bayern Munich cooling their interest, and it's like, oh, Liverpool are there as well, and it just felt very strange and very, very specific. You can pick and choose what you believe of what people will write on media or social media or everything, but I always find it really strange when someone completely unrelated from another country mentions Liverpool with regards to a player that sort of has no specific connection. Like, it's a German man talking about Liverpool signing a Portuguese person from Italy.
But I on the back of that story, I messaged a well-placed source and put the name to that well-placed source.
Is this a fella in a restaurant on the Algarve, Rob?
I'm not saying him this. You can sneer all you like. You'd shit your pants if I told you how well-placed the source is. But the well-placed source wasn't denying name I was putting forward, nor confirming in any way whatsoever.
So you got nothing, basically.
But no, I got.
You got a thumbs up.
I take a non-denial as it's on.
It was reacted to with an emoji where the face was just blank, and
I can't reveal what the emoji was. That would be awful. But it's funny though. But even regardless of
Never mind.
What did you say?
I said, was it an aubergine, Rob?
Oh, an aubergine. That's very smutty, Phil.
But it would give us an insight into it would give us
okay, it was 2 aubergines. I thought you throw me off my stroke.
Your sauce, your information on layout.
No.
Layout.
Ketchup. No. I think it's quite in all seriousness. Abigail, stop laughing.
Honestly, I can't believe what she's done here.
Talk to Mike, the only sensible person.
They have caused all of this.
We did the transfer committee game, and John Gibbo threw Leao's name into the mix. I think he's an interesting one. Obviously, he played well in the Nations final the other day. I was disappointed when I started Googling the fuck out of him yesterday to find out he's quietly got to the age of 26, which feels like old man territory. Would we replace 28-year-old superb Luis Diaz, who's just scored the best goal ever seen, with a 26-year-old? That's the only sort of thing I'm wondering. He's not going to be cheap either. What do you think? Where's your money going if Luis Diaz goes?
I think the Diaz thing's harks back to Wijnaldum for me a little bit, as in like he's probably at that age where they don't want to bump his deal up because it'll cost a lot, but they're more than happy to let the 2 years run because you get a very good player that can play different positions. By the way, he did a bit at 9 for us, just played a little bit on the right wing now and again, and is very good on the left wing when he was rotating in and out with Gakpo. So I don't think there's let's just do this now and force it through. I think, as Abby said, if the money's on the table, then let's talk. But the money has to be right. We're not just going to sell him for what we bought, considering you can probably just get a very good level footballer next year if you don't try and move this along. If you do get like 70 million, 75 plus, you're then looking at the likes of Leao, Gordon, other sort of forwards that can be adaptable, that have a decent level in them, and Leao's, even though he's 26, every time I've seen him, I think he's quite direct, which would be, a very interesting thing to have, where you've got, Wirtz in your team now throwing balls in behind, left, right and centre, if it's either to Leao, like the side of Gakpo / Leao, or Salah, and or maybe a striker. I don't know. It depends what money we bring in from Nunes. I think that's pretty much everyone's aware now that will happen. If that ends up being good money and then someone comes in with a stupid money for offer for Diaz, then you are thinking, well, maybe we go and knock on Newcastle's door and try and get Isak, or is it Ekitike that we've been linked with, which is another sort of big-ish price. I don't know. I'm not averse to selling him. I'm not averse to keeping him. Like I'm just we'll see. With Diaz, replacing him with someone who's 2 years younger than him, absolutely fine. Yeah, the deal have to be signed. Obviously, I don't think I think we're speculating really on what Diaz earns. But say if it is like 70, 80 grand a week, and you're trying to bring someone in like Leao, is he gonna be sound on like the same price, or is he going to want 100, 150? That's where I think the deal to replace him will get interesting, because they're not really wanting to give Diaz that money. Are they going to want to give someone else that money? Maybe that's the reason we'll see the deal go through, because we can get a better deal in our view for a younger player who might give us more long term.
I do wonder what the candidates would be on the left. So I'm racking this through my brain. I think Diaz had I'm a Diaz fan, and I thought he had a really, really good season. I mean, I'm not going to get carried away by the goal he scored for Colombia against Argentina the other night, but it was a reminder of just what level that the player has. And I can't help keep coming back to the fact, if Liverpool are playing a game with Diaz and his future, whereby they can imagine a world without him, that they must have something up their sleeve. I just don't quite buy that they're playing it as laissez-faire as they'd like us to believe, which they're entitled to do, obviously, and I respect the way they're doing it. But I'm trying to read between lines here. I wonder if there's a little bit more certainty and a bit more planned than we realise with the left wing position.
Yeah, I think what got to remember is that there are always more footballers. This is it. People see like the footballers you have and go, these are amazing, and then they leave, and it's like but then you find somebody else, you identify somebody else. We employ a lot of people whose jobs are.
But we're at the very elite level now.
To identify football. Oh no, absolutely. But you think back to January when we were linked with Kvaratskhelia. I sort of half think if that had been delayed until the summer, we might have had a clearer picture of everything that was going on, and he might have ended up signing for Liverpool. He might still have gone to PSG. I don't know, but I think the opportunistic thing sort of works against you sometimes, in that you can't just suddenly buy someone in January because you think they're really good when it's reliant on
Luis Diaz
someone leaving,
Yeah.
and you have to move that player on. I think I'm similar with you on Diaz. I really like him. I think he's in Liverpool's strongest 11. I think he adds a lot to the team. I think he's grown into that centre forward role over the course of the year. He wouldn't be my first choice to play there, but I think he got better at it as the season went on. But if you take him out in January and bring someone in, then it's probably going to negatively affect you. If you do it now,
Yeah.
I don't think it will. And whilst we are looking at the elite level of footballer, using Kvaratskhelia as an example, he was knocking around the Georgian league. I'm almost surprised that he ended up at Napoli.
Yeah.
And it was quite interesting how they took a chance on him, because he was dynamite from day one at Napoli. I have no idea what he must have looked like playing in the Georgian league. It must have been incredible. It must have been incredible to watch, because it must have been like watching Messi play against like the MLS at his peak. We watch what he's doing now, and it's ridiculous. But the Georgian league is weaker, and he's probably at a higher level than Messi is now.
Yeah,
so that's the sort of thing that we were talking about and what it looked like. So I'm surprised that nobody else took that chance.
Yeah.
But what it does tell you is that there's always players, knocking round who are capable of doing
And
something.
I said to, I'll cut across you quickly. I said to my Rafi the other day, I said, the new best player, if you think about Lamine Yamal and how young, good, great players are these days, the best player me and you will be watching in the world in 5 years' time is probably about 13 at the moment. We have no idea.
Exactly. You've just got to identify them at the right time when you get them in. You don't have to spend 100 million on this player.
No.
You just have to find them and know that they will do a good job for you. And that's part of the challenge.
Is anyone else still on the Anthony Gordon thing? Because
That's a
there's
good
a part
question,
of me
Abby,
that
I don't know.
there's a part of me that just thinks that there's still rumblings going on for the whole Anthony Gordon
Curtis
thing.
liking Instagram
I've
stories
seen
about.
that. There's something about it where it just feels as though Liverpool are silently still staying in contact with his people, and there's just a few stories that I've seen go out, but not by some of the most reliable sources. But it just does feel to me as though if Diaz did move on, why not go for someone who's a boyhood red, is a good talent? I mean, they're probably going to want quite a few bob for him, but he's a player that wanted the move, was quite unhappy that he didn't get the move at the time when it was rumbling that it might happen. And now, Newcastle aren't playing him every single game. They're giving Harvey Barnes a lot of game time, and it just feels as though to me it would probably be a good move for him and a good move for us as well. And I don't know if it's just a part of me that just wants to get one up on Evertonians, to be honest. But there is a part of me that there's something about Anthony Gordon that I just want to see him in a Liverpool shirt one day.
I think it's quite interesting the last couple of days how people have started talking about the homegrown situation in terms of Elliott leaving, Kelleher having already gone, and various other things like this. We are sort of in a position where we're probably going to only be able to register maybe 22 players, which is fine because there's Bajcetic is free, for example, and Gamoa's free, Neoni's free. It's not a disaster, but it means that you can't just go and buy whoever you want, because there is obviously this maximum number of foreign players. But Anthony Gordon actually fits into the homegrown thing, would enable the squad to become bigger. We are over capacity on the non-homegrown players at the minute, so we literally have to sell.
Well, let me ask you a question.
For things to happen there.
A specific question. I'll come back to you on this, Mike. But Phil first. A year ago, I was much more pro Anthony Gordon, and I think the world was a little bit more anti Luis Diaz. But I wasn't. But as we stand now, I think Luis Diaz clearly had a better season than Anthony Gordon, right? I think as you stand pound for pound, if you're going to play a Champions League final, I'd rather line up with Luis Diaz than Anthony Gordon. I think he's the better player. But Anthony Gordon is the younger player with a ceiling that he may not have hit, and he's British. Does it make a sense to maybe take a small step backwards by trading, in inverted commas, Diaz for Gordon for a bigger step forward in the future, potentially?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure it is a step backwards. There's also an argument that that's exactly the type of business you do to get better, in that there's an element of Gordon being slightly on a downward curve, and Diaz is quite possibly at the top of his.
Yes.
Let's be perfectly honest about this. Diaz is quite possibly in the position where we will never get as much money for him. If we want to keep him longer, we probably realistically have to either accept that he's going to lose on free, which means you lose not sum of money, but you don't have the money to then go out and buy Anthony Gordon in 2 years' time, for example. Or you have to give him a new contract or you sell him.
Yeah.
I feel like it feels like selling him and replacing him with Anthony Gordon, even if it was literally a case of selling and then transferring the money straight to Newcastle.
Yeah.
And you get the other player for the same amount of money. He's a bit younger. He helps you out in other areas in terms of the homegrown situation.
Yeah.
I think he can probably do the both roles in the same way that Diaz does. I'd say he's probably not as good on the left wing, but he's probably better up front. I think that's probably fair.
Did he play as a 10 or as a striker?
He plays as a striker. He's played through the middle when Isaac hasn't been there over the last couple of years. Not extensively, but they've obviously had Callum Wilson as backup to Isaac, who's been, chronically broken for about 5 years. So Gordon has filled in from time to time there, and he's done a pretty good job. But it gives you sort of that multifunctional option that Diaz has been turned into in a more natural manner. I think it would make a lot of sense, and I think that it doesn't feel like you'd be downgrading to me, because you're changing what you have, and you're leaving yourself with a bit more of an option to go with them.
Do you? What was I going to say? Do you think there's an element, Mike, of if you could get Anthony Gordon in, it's a bit two birds with one stone, because could he be your striker and left winger solution? And as much as we've seen some signings, like you could argue Wirtz is your solution as for Szoboszlai's position, but also as a false nine. You could argue that Frimpong is your right back, but also your deputy for Mo Salah. Would buying Anthony Gordon be... is it possible Liverpool buy Anthony Gordon and think, we don't actually necessarily need another striker? We can, between Wirtz playing false nine, Gordon playing nine, and maybe keeping Joshua as a backup, we got ourselves covered. Or if we brought in Gordon for Diaz, would you expect a striker as well? Is supposed to long-winded thing I'm saying.
I wish I knew, Rob, to be honest, because
I wish you knew.
I didn't expect the Wirtz thing. I genuinely didn't. And it's a sort of shift and sands thing, isn't it? Where the market presents a chance and we take it, and well, of course, because if you want to be involved in this player, do we then move and if we get Gordon? But I would imagine we would have sold Diaz and Núñez for quite a lot more than we were expecting. Certainly the Diaz one anyway, at least. And like Phil, I don't really feel as if it'd be a massive step down. I think we'd just still be a great football team, because he brings other different things that maybe Diaz wasn't as good as him as, but also a very similar level, good Premier League experience. It's not a bad move, I don't think, for anyone in any way, shape or form. Newcastle may, Champions League side wanting to reinvest that money somewhere else in a different sort of player that they've identified that they might be able to get a match on that no one's into. Who knows? For us, if we do the Gordon thing, I don't think people at the club would be necessarily thrilled that we've boxed 9 off there, as well as we've got 2 left wingers. I don't think Gakpo was under Klopp, but not as much under Slot. I think he's been much more defined as a left wing, so I don't think he'd figure in the options. We'd all think Salah would be, but he's never really been shown to be moved inside through Slot. And maybe that's just a wrong thing to be doing, thinking that way, because maybe like last season we did what we needed to do, and this season he might go, I'll tell you what, I've got Mo Salah there, he's boss of finishing, move him inside, and he might do more of an Henry where he pulls out wide, then comes in and gets space that way. If we keep Jota, because there's been some chat about Jota, there's been pretty much some chat about all our forwards bar Salah, because there's even been like weird Gakpo buying links that I've just never bought in my life, because I think Gakpo's settled. I don't know. I think if we get Gordon and Diaz goes, I think there will be still some interest in a forward again, because I think we're going to cover the fullbacks quite well. I think there's a centre half problem that we will be needing to deal with sooner rather than later, especially if Quansah goes. Konate's in the last year. If he signs that deal, that becomes less of an issue of buying 2 centre halves. Say we just get one and we'd be fine for this season. Endo will stay probably and do some covering there if needed. But there's AFCON as well, isn't there, that we've got to think about for the January period where Salah goes. So there's going to be a period where that front 3 or whatever and shape it ends up being, could be a 1, could be a 4, who knows, needs enough players fit and available and at a good enough level. And does that require signing more? It's weird, isn't it? We're signing another striker or forward. If we get Gordon and Diaz goes out the door, and you think, do we need another one?
Well, this is it. Let me come to Phil on this one, because if we got Gordon, it's not fantasy. It's not really fantasy football to say Gordon might come in and Diaz might go. It's not fantasy football to say we might get us forward like Ekitike in. Wirtz is all but through the door. We've got Salah. So you're looking at a possibility that Liverpool could line up at the start of next season with 3 of the front 4 totally new players, which feels quite a remarkable shift for a team that's won the title, doesn't it? Remarkably bold, exciting, but remarkably bold. Do you think? Are we being too extreme in thinking that's the way they're thinking?
No, I think it's fair. I mean, you've got to remember that 2 years ago we did the midfield.
Yeah.
Like, so
but
why
is it
can't you-
fallen
why
off a
can't you do
cliff?
the
Is it
forward
fallen
line?
off a cliff? Right. It was clear that it needed renovating,
but
it was dramatic then too.
There
you're
is
right.
an argument that the forward line is potentially not far off that. Like, I don't think that's outrageous. Like, Nunes is, done here. I've not been particularly impressed with Jota last season, and
Kearney hasn't worked.
he was injured he'll get injured again as well. You can look at Diaz and go, well, he's just had an excellent season. Is he going to be quite as good? Like, I think Gakpo's a good squad player, but I've got no real interest in a Liverpool team where he's like Liverpool's first choice left winger. I think he's perfectly serviceable for a squad role for Liverpool, and being Liverpool's 4th best attacker, that's absolutely fine. But I don't really want to watch him start week in, week out in Premier League football. So then Chiesa, then what have you got left? You've got Salah left.
Yeah.
So you do really probably need to. The next step for this is probably a real quick turnover and a real strong turnover, and you do it once, you get it banged out in a pre-season. That's the other thing about this pre-season, is this is going to be a pre-season different to next one, and that it will be properly.
Everyone's
there. Whereas next summer will be like last summer, where most of the squad didn't even go on the pre-season tour.
Yeah.
Most of the Liverpool World Cup Euros players from last summer play one friendly at Anfield, have 10 days worth of training, and then it's Ipswich. That's going to be the same next summer. This summer, not the same. There's an opportunity to get all of the training ground stuff that you want to do in this summer, and that is probably a better way of doing it. If you're gonna bring sort of 4 in now or 3 in now, that's probably better than doing 2 and 2. And by 2 and 2, I mean 2 this summer, 2 next summer. Like, that is probably a better approach. And while it does feel very, hang on, this is a bit mad, it might well be the better long-term approach to get everything settled, to get everyone working together for a longer period of time than you have the opportunity to every other summer. And whilst it does sound like a lot of work, it might just be the best way of doing things.
It also gives you like your budget next summer to have fully swing at the centre half issue there.
Yeah.
And you're not like splitting your eggs, as you say, 2 and 2 this summer or next summer. If one centre half, that, like we're talking about, Wirtz pops up, centre half wise, you just go Sam, we just buy him then.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, there is another element of that. It'd be really difficult. It'd be Christmas before teams knew exactly how you played.
Well,
that's one of the reasons we were. One of the reasons we won the league this year is because, I'm pretty sure it is because the teams had no video to go off and were not quite sure what Liverpool were going to do, and we were able to build up such a big lead because stylistically they weren't able to go, well, they're going to do this.
And this is what the manager says he believes in, to the extent that, him and Salah talked about a new role. They're even talking about a new role for the coming season for Salah. Well, a tweaked role. Last word to you, Ab. Let's finish on Mo Salah. Everything always ends with Mo Salah. We talk about renovating the attack, about everybody except him remains. But the truth is, the elephant in the room is we can't be watching Mo Salah forever, unfortunately, because he's not a young footballer. And although we're delighted to have got him for this extra 2 years, the end is in sight now. We need to imagine an attack without Mo Salah. And I wonder if they're half dreaming, if that's the right word, of what a Liverpool attack looks like mid-season, where Salah's maybe got a bit of a strain because he's an older player, and we have to live with. Well, we know in AFCON times we're going to live without him for 4 or 5 weeks, and he might come back a bit tired. He needs to imagine a Liverpool attack which doesn't have Mo Salah in, but still scares the living daylights out of teams.
I still believe that one of the reasons why we bought Frimpong in is for future for future
Proofing.
Salah replacement. I just think, future proofing, AFCON proof basically will be just Frimpong to be able to play in that position. I think he will be good enough eventually to be the right winger for Liverpool. From what I've seen of him, I just feel like that right back position is Conor Bradley's, and I want it to stay Conor Bradley's. And I feel like the way that we're going to use Frimpong is, I think it's succession. I think that's what it is. I think Liverpool are planning far ahead, and we've looked at Frimpong and thought, okay, we'll use him there for now, but I just feel as though he's Salah's replacement. I mean, I might be wrong. It feels as though to me that that's it, and he's bedding in now. We've got 2 more years of Mo. I can't see Mo staying past those 2 years. I feel like this is his last 2 years. I don't see Liverpool giving him another contract past that. Hopefully he can go on forever, but like you've said, the end is in sight with Mo. And like we were saying then, we were talking about the attack, and it's like, we're not really talking about Salah like Mike said, but we are, because we've been talking about Salah all summer, and now we've only got 2 more years. This time in a year we're going to be having similar conversations again, and we don't know what sort of position Mo's going to be in, but who's better to learn off for Frimpong, or maybe if we do bring someone else in eventually, than Mo Salah. For me, that's probably the future plan of Liverpool.
I'm calling this Liverpool 2027 front 6: Gravenberch, McAllister, Wirtz. Right side Frimpong, left side Anthony Gordon, up front Hugo Ekitike. Watch this space. That's it. That's your award-winning gutter, brought to you by the lovely people of Saley. Thank you to Phil, thank you to Abby, thank you to Mike, thanks for Andy for producing, and Milo for doing the pictures.